Hey, what's up guys? This is Rick with the Digital Divide. Today I want to vent some of my frustrations about the lack of creativity when it comes to modern Marvel characters. Not their classics created by Stan Lee and Jack Kirby, but some of their newer characters that really aren't new characters. A lot of the time when Marvel wants to create a new character, all they do is take an existing one and change either the gender or the race of the character. So we're going to start off with Hawkeye, and he's a classic that we all know and love. Recently, he had a show on Disney Plus, and while I really enjoyed it and thought it was great and entertaining, the lack of creativity killed me because it's literally just Hawkeye but in female form, specifically Kate Bishop. They just took the same character with essentially the same abilities, and she's just as accurate as he is with a bow and arrow, and it's just a female version of him, which is a little lacking in creativity. Next, we're going to move on to Wolverine, who is one of my favorite characters ever made, like bar none. Him and Captain America are up there, and Spider-Man as well, but they replaced him with X-23, which is literally just a female version of him. Again, completely lacking in creativity. And this is coming from somebody who absolutely loved Logan. It might be my favorite superhero movie ever made, but it's just lacking in creativity. We're gonna move on to Thor because again, it's the exact same thing here. Thor is getting a new movie called Thor: Love and Thunder coming up, and he is essentially being replaced by Jane Foster, which is essentially just a female version of Thor. Again, with almost the exact same outfit, the exact same powers, little to no difference other than the gender. Next, we're going to move on to Captain America, and this is a more egregious example where he's one of my favorite superheroes. I loved him in the MCU and in the comics, but the issue is that Captain America is too popular a character to get rid of. So Marvel had to come up with a way to bring him back into the fold. So recently, Disney came out with a show called What If, and that essentially just made a female version of Captain America in the form of Peggy Carter coming back as Captain Carter. Even worse, as U.S. Agent, or as I like to call, the Dollar Store Captain America. And then we've got Sam Wilson, and he's a little bit different though. He was chosen by Cap, at least in the MCU, to take over the mantle, and I really like his character. He's a good guy, so I think he deserves it. Next, we're moving on to Iron Man, and again, this is the exact same issue. As many of you know, he dies by sacrificing himself at the end of Endgame, at least as far as the movies are concerned. But many don't know that he's going to be replaced by Riri Williams. This is confirmed to be an adaptation that Marvel is pursuing in the MCU, and she is literally going to take over the mantle of Iron Man. And she's going to have almost the identical suit and powers, and my issue with this is that we were led to believe that Tony Stark was so smart that only he could create this technology, but it turns out that's not the case. Next, we're going to move on to Hulk, and this is, again, more of the same, where they take this character, and essentially in the MCU at least, Mark Ruffalo is aging out of the role. He's in his mid-50s now, so they're going to replace him with a younger female version of the Hulk, and it's essentially the same exact character, but they just swapped gender. So now instead of a guy, it's a girl, and it's younger, but it is essentially the exact same character, and it's just lacking in creativity as far as I'm concerned. By far the most egregious offender here, though, is the character of Spider-Man. He is one of my all-time favorite superheroes ever made, and again, as I said in the beginning of this, that Marvel, unfortunately, instead of creating new and unique characters, they have a tendency of taking existing characters and simply changing either the gender of the character or the race, and then treating it as if it's a new character when it's really not. And the most popular of these is probably Miles Morales. He is literally just Spider-Man, but a different race. He is African-American and Spanish, but he's got the exact same setup as Peter Parker. He is a high school-aged student from New York who happens by chance to run into a radioactive spider and gets bitten and gets all these powers. It's exactly the same story as Peter Parker. There's zero originality here. There's also Spider-Gwen, which is female version of Spider-Man. Same powers and everything, just a girl. There's even a Spider-Ham, and I'm not joking, this is literally a pig with the powers of Spider-Man, and while I think this is hilarious, it just lacks creativity, and there's so many different versions of Spider-Man, and to me that takes away from what makes the character special. When you create a character, what makes them special is that they're one of a kind, they're unique, only they can do what they can do, and that makes them special. But when you give every single person and their mother the same exact powers, it completely removes all of what makes them special, in my opinion. That's why I was happy when Guardians of the Galaxy came out. This was a Marvel franchise that honestly I didn't read growing up. I read a lot of Marvel comic books growing up, but this is one of the books that I did not read, and I was pleasantly surprised because it was so original. And a lot of people might think that a talking raccoon or a walking tree is kind of silly, but at least it was different, and it was unique, and it was original. Speaking of originality, one of the franchises I'm most excited for is Moon Knight. And Moon Knight, I grew up loving this character, like from day one. As soon as I saw a Moon Knight comic book, I thought he was so cool and so unique, and he was a lot darker than Spider-Man. Spider-Man was very jovial, and he joked a lot, and he was happy. He was the polar opposite of that. So Moon Knight is Mark Spector, and he has dissociative identity disorder. In the comic books, he takes on the persona of 4 different characters. One of them is a billionaire businessman, Steve Grant, and he is often compared to Bruce Wayne or Batman from the DC universe, in that he has a lot of money, he doesn't really have superpowers, but he has a lot of gadgets. In this case, that's mostly true, except Moon Knight does have some powers, at least in the comics. His strength, endurance, reflexes, all kind of change depending on the phases of the moon, and he operates at superhuman level during a full moon night. He's a really interesting character, and how he gets his powers is really special in the MCU. And I think that darker, more supernatural tone will help bring in the likes of a character like Ghost Rider, for example, which I'm also a huge fan of. And I know somebody that basically sells his soul to the devil to save somebody that he loves isn't the most original storyline either, but I thought the character as a whole was pretty unique, and I don't think there's anyone quite like him either in the MCU currently, or in the comic books. So has Marvel run out of ideas? I don't think so. I think that their peak was when they had somebody like Stan Lee, who is absolutely brilliant in my opinion, coming up with these amazing characters that we know and love today. I don't think they have that level of creativity currently, but there is some of that left still. For example, today I went to the comic book store and I picked up a copy of The Death of Doctor Strange #1, which is the first appearance of a new character that they're introducing, Lyra Bloodstone. And she's like a monster hunter kind of character, and what makes me happy when I saw this is that it is a completely new and original character design that is not like any of the other characters in their portfolio, and that made me happy, and it gave me hope that there's still some hope that they're gonna kind of not lean so much on their original characters and start being more creative and introducing completely new ones. And I think that those demographics are better served by creating a character specifically for them, for women or for every race, rather than taking an existing one and modifying it slightly to suit that demographic, just creating a brand new one that is built for that purpose. And I think that that's just going to be great, and this gives me some hope that that's going to happen. So that's going to do it for me today, guys, and as always, thanks for listening.